Hello, YouTubers, friends, compatriots, bootlickers, shills, debts, like stars, peasants, vassals, minions, meat sacks. I'm Useful Idiot. Welcome, and let's go to Gambia this morning. And this is one of those cases of it just gets so obvious because the blueprint is always the same, and once again we get a clusterfuck involving a dictator that the United States supported in Gambia, who has now been toppled once again by the efforts of the United States. And so the United States policy playing both sides, and we have once again the CIA involved in foreign countries and foreign elections, and so in an era when people are talking a lot about election meddling, and we have a case like this that's fairly obvious that the CIA is involved. So we have the CIA has this new veracity because of their clashes with Trump, and yet and also this, like I say, this whole idea of meddling in elections. And here's a textbook case, and nobody's really talking about it. And you get into the details, it's pretty interesting. So we had a upset election, and the dictator was President Jammeh. Was removed, and so because he said that he didn't abide by the election results, and so therefore he had to be removed. And not only that, very dramatically removed by an African coalition force with troops from Senegal, Nigeria, Mali, Ghana, Togo. And of course, this was after he vowed to rule a billion years. So once again, a nutty dictator that the United States has propped up, and he's used as long as he's a good, useful idiot. And the subtext of the story, of course, is continued U.S. military presence across Africa and utilizing this so-called African coalition force to perpetrate a lot of its own U.S.'s own foreign policies in Africa, all over the region, including Somalia. And once again in Gambia, we have the United States using non-government organizations to build up some sort of astroturf resistance movement to the government. And now we have this gentleman named Barrow, who is a U.S. puppet, and he's ran and theoretically got elected. So it's another intervention and another U.S. puppet put in place to replace the previous U.S. puppet. The U.S. had assisted Jammeh in overthrowing the democratically elected president in 1994 under Bill Clinton. So once again, as we see in all these countries where the United States exercises these sort of operations, we find this revolving door of U.S. puppets and supporting these dictators. Jammeh was even welcomed to the White House by both President Bush and President Obama. So he's, once again, is going to be one of those people that's surprised where he's gotten this U.S. support all along the way, and then all of a sudden the United States decides that he's a liability and therefore makes efforts to remove him. So that's got quite a few years. If you look back, that's going on 20, 25 years. The U.S. has supported this dictator, and now, of course, he has to go. Some other interesting facts, too. Jammeh owns a $3.5 million mansion just outside of Washington, D.C., so no wonder he's all constantly rubbing elbows with U.S. government members. And then, of course, the icing on the cake is that Jammeh got his military training in the United States and used to be in the Gambia Army, and is also an honorary Georgia citizen and honorary member of the Alabama State Militia. So he's got a lot of connections with the United States, and just like we see in the Middle East, another figure who's gotten a lot of U.S. military training, has associations with the U.S. military, the U.S. government, and the CIA, and then he ends up being the dictator, and then becomes a liability, needs to be toppled. And last but not least, Gambia also was one of the countries under Jammeh, this dictator, and participated in the 9/11 rendition program. So kind of like Syria as well, in countries like Jordan and Syria. Um, Gambia participated in CIA torture programs in expediting so-called terrorists around the globe, and thought he was playing ball with the United States, and then he becomes the enemy at some point, just like Assad, where the United States and the CIA used Syrian torture prisons to facilitate the war on terror. And then a little further down the road, Assad becomes demonized and must be toppled. So we see this similar blueprint, but this Gambia one just reads like something out of the same script we've seen quite a few times. And so there we have it. Another U.S. intervention in Gambia. I'm a useful idiot. Don't you be one too?